Hello, Dungeon Master Nick here with RPG Mastery, and today's episode is going to be about player types. Now, this will be animated, so that's good. You don't want to sit here and watch my mug. I'm practicing some of my animation skills, that way I can add a little more of an entertainment layer to my video media. So, without further ado, let's get right to it, guys, and let's jump to the Dungeon Master Scrolls. So, we're going to go through the 6 character types or player types that I've seen and my friends have seen. A good friend John came up with a list back in the day because he is I wouldn't say an amateur philosopher, but definitely a philosopher. And yeah, not amateur, he's he's above an amateur. He's done a lot of studying in philosophy. He loves philosophy, so he applied it to game mastering and role-playing games to try and understand what makes people tick in the game and whatnot. And he mostly, but together we worked on this, and we come up with like 6 different character types or player types, and how to get the most out of a game for them, and how to GM for them, and how to make an entertaining game. And so we're going to start here with our number one most common player type that everyone understands, everyone's seen. It's a power player. Now, you're dealing with a power player when the stats come first. Okay? Power players love broken combos, they love broken characters, they love characters that can kill, dominate, destroy, cause chaos. They love that stuff. They live for that stuff. Now, a lot of people think power players are problem players, and that's not true. Power players is just a style of way a way to play. There's no right or wrong way to play. There's opinions that I have about what's a wrong way to play. We'll get to that. But a power player always basically wants to influence the game through physical domination. And what does that translate to? It means stats. So they will optimize, they will min-max, they'll do whatever it takes to make sure that if something gets in their way or they get bored, they can totally wreck an NPC, or they'll wreck another player. And that's when things get not so great. What they want is to be powerful. They want to be strong. Maybe they're a person in real life that doesn't have much influence. Maybe they don't have a lot of success. And maybe they see their opportunity to feel successful through changing stats. And so basically that's the power player trope, you know what I mean? And this power players, these are, I believe power players are probably the core of where you get your murder hobo, where the idea of the power players are basically where the idea of the murder hobo comes from. Because when a power player gets bored, that's what they do. They become homeless adventurers that go out and kill people for fun, and sometimes it's not even for money. It's just a flex, you know what I mean? Not that it's a bad thing, because a party full of emotive players or players that are psychological may not be strong enough to deal with some of the foes that you come up with. So that power player pulls the party. The next player type we have is the emotive player. Now, the emotive players, it's not always easy to figure out what they are, or to spot the emotive player at first. But as time goes on, you'll understand. Stats are second to the emotive player. Emotive players care about story, and they get invested they get invested in the story and the other players through the eyes of their character. They're very character driven. Like, whatever, they're always asking, what would my character do? How would they feel right now? And they will take that role playing to the next level. I'm not saying that there's a best form of role playing, but the emotive players, if you have a couple emotive players in your campaign, it'll create it. It'll make a campaign. It won't be one-offs if you have enough emotive players. It will continue. Those people will drive a game because they will see it through different eyes. They won't see this game as a way to flex power or to, test themselves psychologically or anything like that. It's not about that. It's about feeling and changing the world they can through relationship dynamics and impactful decision making. Impactful as in whole campaign altering kind of things. They love that stuff. So if you have an emotive player and you want to entertain the hell out of them, basically set them up with an ultimatum and they'll, this or that situation, and they will go crazy on it. It'll entertain them for a long time because they will weigh everything, the emotional weight of everything. Do I, do I kill one person and save the world, or do I not kill that person because they don't deserve to die? Like that, emotive players live for that. The next player type, it's very close to home for me, is the hero player. Now, I am very much a hero style player. I love heroes of all times. I'm a comic book fan. I like Dragon Ball Z and stuff like that. My favorite characters are the heroes, Maybe that's another way you can determine what kind of characters are your favorite in the stories. Is it the hero? Is it the villain? Is it the side characters that give the story more weight? What is it? Or is it the badass of the group? What you can determine, that might be a good way to determine what kind of players you're dealing with based on what characters they like. Because players always play characters they like, that's for sure. So I would say I'm a hero player, and I understand them the best. And a hero player basically wants to be a problem solver. That's what they're all about. And when I say hero, I don't just mean like, oh, they're always a good guy. Hero players can also be villains. And basically, they want to solve problems. The main thing a hero player craves is opportunities for epic moments. Like, that's what they crave. They want to have heroic moments. They want that moment where they're standing on top of the building and their cape is flowing in the wind, and they see the bad guy, and they have that moment where they're like, I have to sacrifice myself to save mankind. Like, that's the moment that the heroes crave. And they want to succeed, but sometimes they just want to be in that, even at no matter the cost, even if it costs them their character. And so to entertain a hero player is not very hard. All you have to do is set up people that oppose their viewpoints. We're moving on now to the psychological player, okay? And psychological players are you might get confused with an emotive player, but they're very different. A psychological player, to me, focuses on themselves more than other things. But because of this, they're just looking through a different frame, right? So what do I mean? So a psychological player is a player who's like, okay, at the beginning of the game, you meet them in the tavern, right? And they're sitting in the corner, and maybe they're some kind of dark wizard, right? And they're sitting in a corner and they're hooded, and there's a candle in front of them, and you see, and they wave and they press to digitize the candle into this skull, or maybe it's an image of a woman, and then they have like scars all over their body, and they really emphasize what's going on, and what they want is someone to inquire about that information. So to entertain a psychological player, you inquire them and you set them up in situations that allow them to express this psychological side. A lot of them go with characters that have some kind of ailment. Maybe they have Tourette's. Maybe they have multiple personality disorder. Maybe they're an alcoholic. Like, they will play characters like that because they're psychologically testing themselves and role-playing with those new pair of eyes. And psychological players are oftentimes, they become politicians in the game, oftentimes maybe guild masters or something like that. They usually pull a lot of strings and they always have some kind of underlying motive. They understand, I would say psychological characters probably understand their character better than any other type of player. They'll have rich backstories, they'll have very, very small, subtle details, and they want other players to ask about those details, and as a GM, if you want to entertain them, you will bring those to the surface for people to question and learn about. And that's what gives them their kicks. So the fifth player type here is the weird player. and I say weird / experimental player, very close to the psychological player. But these guys, basically, they want to experiment and they want to loosen up when they role play. So these kind of players will make characters like 3-armed ogres, and they'll play like that, and they'll get their kicks out of experimenting with the world, interacting with NPCs, and seeing what happens with those interactions. And they oftentimes they're very comedic, and sometimes they can just be straight up weird. Like they do things that don't make any sense, but oftentimes turn out to be very cool and different. So basically, every group's counting. And sometimes as a GM, it can be out there because as a GM, you want to try and predict character behavior, player behavior, and that way you can try to drive the plot wherever it needs to go. And when a weird player gets in there, they throw a wrench in the game. You know what I mean? You got a tavern owner, and you got your party in the bar, right? And the weird player goes up in, and this guy, you got to establish this tavern owner takes no shit from no one and will kill somebody. You know, if they disrespect him, he's seen too much stuff going on in his bar, and it ain't gonna happen again. You know what I mean? But the weird player it will go up to that bartender and be like, "Oh, I rolled to lick his face." Like, like that's what you're dealing with, and when that happens, the best way to do it is just play it out, man. They want those reactions. They want crazy stuff to happen. Wild cards, often they're the wild card of the group. They're the person that can't be trusted with information, or will play their character to the fullest. If their character is an idiot, or if their character is, a klepto or something like that, they love it. They always have some kind of gimmick or something that's going on, and it makes for great stories. And basically, how do you entertain these people? Just give them reactions. Have what their behavior is. Give them an appropriate reaction that you think would happen. Never ignore them. Never. They do not want to be ignored. They play these characters for attention, and they play these characters to experiment in ways that they can't experiment in real life. You know what I mean? So give them that, and you're going to have a hell of a time. It's going to be great, because a lot of the players, it's going to cause player investment when they don't want to hang out. Their players maybe don't want to hang out with that guy, but maybe they have to, or just so much drama can be made out of this. And then the last player type, which is unfortunate that I gotta peg this, and I don't know any other way to say it. And when I do say these things, I mean any person can be an amalgam of these things. Can be, maybe if you're like me, I feel personally, mainly I'm a hero player, but I'll go, if I'm challenged too much in a party, I'll become a power player, and sometimes if I get bored, I'm the weird player. You know what I mean? So I feel like I've got very different. Everybody's very different. Everyone's a mix of these things. Nobody is just one thing, and that's very important to know. And because we're going through all the player types, we go through the last type, which is unfortunate to say, but it's the dick. And everyone knows dicks, okay? Power players that are dicks are usually the most common form of dicks in the game, okay? Power players will use stats to basically, undermine other people, make them feel bad, kill players, kill off stories. That's what they do. Basically what they want is control over something. They want to be dominant. And that is the underlying thing you have to understand. People are dicks because they want to be dominant. Okay, so this involves the character is like, oh, I wait till all the players fall asleep and then I steal from them. That's what they want to do. They drive metagaming, which is not bueno. they drive a lot of problems. And if you have if a player is a dick, being a dick in a game, you kind of have to. Basically the way I handle it is I will set up situations to where either that character can be slain, And if it's really bad, I will just not invite that player again, or I will talk to that player and we'll work out problems with that character, you know what I mean, or that player. And usually, sometimes they don't mean to be that way. They just get bored. They're probably all the players can become dicks if they're not getting what they value out of the game. You know what I mean? If no one's paying attention to your psychological character who's trying to emphasize all these traits and nobody cares about that character, maybe they'll become a dick. Maybe you're a weird player that no one's responding to. That the NPCs are just acting like, oh, there's nothing on, you're just normal, whatever, you're just like everyone else. Maybe their behavior will become outrageous and they'll become dicks. The emotive player will become a dick easily outside because they see through their characters. So outside of the game, players will get upset at get upset in real life about how other players are playing their characters, and they'll question, oh, why did you do that? Doesn't make any sense. Why did you play your character like that? Why did you make that decision? So a lot of the times, all the player types can be dicks. Power player is just the most easy one to see because people be a dick by using the math and, cheating, essentially, combining all these rules in ways that make no sense and then arguing it, lawyering their way out of stuff. And so I would say that unfortunately that is one of the player types. I would say some people are just like that all the time, but usually if you have a talk with them, you can find out up front what is it they're wanting out of the game, and you can provide NPCs that they can be dicks to instead of being dicks to the other players. And that, maybe the dick becomes the hero. Maybe the dick becomes, maybe the power player becomes someone that the other players believe in. You know what I mean? Maybe that they need that player. You know what I mean? So you set them up in such a way that works. So you set them up in such a way that if they harm the other players, they're harming themselves by proxy. So that's about it. That's all I got here today for Tabletop Tales. And I hope you like my animations. If you do, give me a thumbs up, give me a like, give me a comment. Tell me, did I miss a player type? Because I probably did. This isn't exact science, you know what I mean? It's just, it's like philosophy. So thank you very much for watching. Just comment, like, and subscribe. This is Nick Newman with RPG Mastery. And remember to keep calm and roll 20.